Hey, welcome back. Glad you're here, because today's story is one that hits deep. I'm Cameron, and I want to talk about something that happens more often than it should: people judging you on sight. No questions asked. They glance at your clothes, where you're standing, who you're with, and just like that, they decide who you are. You'd think people would have outgrown that by now, right? I wish. But if you've ever been ignored, looked over, or treated like you didn't belong, then you already know. At my sister's wedding, her father-in-law wouldn't even look at me until he realized who I was. Then suddenly, he switched up. So I gave him the same energy. But there's a reason why he jumped to conclusions, and to understand it, I have to take you back. Back to where it really began, with my sister Ashley and me, raised by our dad. Our mom left when we were little, got remarried, started a new life without us. So it was just the three of us. And honestly, we were okay. Dad was a businessman. He had his struggles, sure, but he kept the lights on, kept food on the table. He was far from perfect, but he was there. We thought it would stay that way. Until one morning, everything changed. I was a few months from finishing college. Ashley was in her last year of high school. Then came the call. A car accident. Dad didn't make it. You can't prepare for that kind of loss. Doesn't matter how old you are. When someone says your father is gone, just like that, it cracks something open in you. I remember driving home in total silence. Ashley was waiting. I had to be the one to tell her. She collapsed in my arms. But the grief wasn't even the hardest part. It was everything that followed. Turns out, Dad was drowning in debt. Loans, missed payments. He must have been trying to shield us from it all. But once the banks heard he was gone, they came fast. Took the house, the cars, his office, everything. In weeks, we lost it all. No savings. Just two broken-hearted siblings with suitcases and nowhere to go. I'll never forget standing with Ashley after the funeral, just the two of us left. That was the moment it hit me. We're all we have now. After burying Dad, there was no space for me to fall apart. I had to step up. While my classmates were celebrating graduation or chasing internships, I was staring down rent, bills, and how to feed us. I had no roadmap, but I knew one thing. I couldn't afford to fail. I pushed through college, barely. Worked every job I could find. By day, I was a student. By night, barista, delivery guy, office temp. If it paid, I did it. There were weeks I didn't sleep. Left before dawn, came home after midnight. My body was done, but my mind couldn't stop. Ashley needed me. Every dollar counted. Of course, something had to give, and for me, it was love. I had a girlfriend back then. Sweet. Patient. But even she started feeling it. The late replies, the distance, the constant canceling. She said, "You're never really here." And she wasn't wrong. It wasn't fair to her. She wanted someone present, someone whole. But I had nothing left. So I ended it. Not because I didn't care, but because I had to choose. And I chose Ashley. Chose survival. Love could wait. After graduation, I landed a steady corporate job. Not my dream, but it paid the bills. Gave us a bit of ground to stand on. And even then, I never stopped learning. Online classes, certifications, anything to build a better future. Because one thing never changed. I had someone counting on me. I knew I had to earn more, save more, plan not just for myself, but for Ashley's future too. Then one day, I heard that a couple of my old college buddies were working on a software project. They were building an AI tool to automate back-end workflows. Big idea, risky, but something about it sparked something in me. I reached out, told them I wasn't an AI expert, but I had business chops, a head for marketing, and a hunger to build something real. That's how I joined the team. What started as their idea became our startup. My day job paid the bills, but by night, I was all in, bleary-eyed, back hunched over a screen, chasing a dream most people wouldn't bet on. It was brutal. I'd crash asleep on my laptop, wake up with a stiff neck, then jump back in, all while trying to keep Ashley and me above water. The early days were rough. Technical bugs, endless debates, and too many moments where quitting felt like the only sane choice. One of the co-founders, my friend, eventually did walk away. He couldn't keep pushing uphill without a payoff. I understood. I thought about leaving too. But something in me wouldn't let go. I kept thinking, if this works, it changes everything. And then, it did. We rolled out a feature, a logic engine that let businesses streamline internal workflows. People loved it. Slowly at first, then all at once, the buzz spread. Emails, calls, demo requests. Industry blogs started mentioning us. It felt surreal. But even then, I didn't leave my corporate job. I stayed cautious, frugal, watching every dollar. My remaining co-founder became our front man, networking, giving interviews, doing panels. I didn't care about that. I preferred the shadows, handling operations, making sure the engine kept running. Looking back now, I see how those years forged me. The pressure, the sleepless grind, the faith that I could both build a company and be the rock my sister needed. Those are the things that shaped me. Then, one night, I'd just gotten home, barely sat down, when Ashley called. Her voice was warm but nervous. I could tell she had something big to say. "Cam," she said, "I'm getting married." I blinked. Wait, what? I knew she was dating someone. We talked. But marriage? That soon? I couldn't even remember the guy's name. Naturally, I had questions. I trust her, but I needed to understand. How long had this been serious? Why now? She told me they'd actually known each other for years. Reconnected after college. And by the time she mentioned him to me, it had already gotten serious. She was glowing with happiness, and that's what mattered. She said her fiancé wanted to meet me. Of course, I agreed. I'm her only family. If he's marrying my sister, he better sit down with me first. We arranged a dinner. When I opened the door and saw his face, something clicked. He looked familiar. We shook hands, talked, and then it hit me. His father was one of our major clients. Not just any client. The same man who'd been trying to buy us out for months. I'd never thought about him outside of emails and negotiations. And now, his son wanted to marry Ashley. It rattled me for a second, but I kept calm. I listened. Tried to see who this guy was beyond his last name, because parents don't always define their kids. Ashley must have picked up on my silence. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "No one's pressuring me," she said. "I know what I'm doing. I trust him. And this timing, it feels right." I looked in her eyes. She meant it. The first time I met her soon-to-be father-in-law was during the wedding prep, a typical family meetup. I didn't expect red carpets, but I didn't expect that cold welcome either. From the second I walked in, I felt it. The way he looked at me, like he was already making calculations. He barely even acknowledged me when I introduced myself. At some point during our conversation, he tilted his head and said, "Oh, you're just her brother?" I assumed her father would be here. On paper, harmless. But in person, it hit different, sharp, dismissive. Like I didn't measure up. Like I wasn't enough to represent my family. I took a quiet breath and told him, "Our father passed away years ago." He barely flinched, just nodded and moved on, asking what I did for a living. Right then, I knew exactly what kind of man he was. The kind who sizes you up by your title, your income, your network. Not your character. Not your story. Just your surface. I could feel him trying to slot me into a category. But I wasn't about to perform. I told him simply, "I work a corporate job right now." He nodded, said nothing. So I smiled. Because deep down, I knew, one day, this man was going to see me in a very different light. That day came at the wedding. A perfect afternoon, everything warm and glowing. My sister looked radiant, and her joy was all that mattered to me. I was chatting with guests when her father-in-law walked past. I stood right there. He caught my eye for half a second, then turned away. Deliberate. Cold. Like I wasn't worth a glance. He'd already made his judgment during the planning phase. I thought maybe he'd at least play nice in public. Nope. Still, I didn't flinch. Didn't give him the energy. It was Ashley's moment, not mine. Then, during the reception, an organizer tapped me on the shoulder. "You're up next for a short speech." What? No one told me. I considered passing, but then I thought, no, Ashley deserves to hear from me today. So I walked up, took the mic, and let my heart speak. "Hi, I'm Cameron, Ashley's brother." A few curious glances. Most probably assumed her parents would be up here. Then I said, "But I wasn't just her brother. I was her guardian." And just like that, the room shifted. I told them about losing our dad in a sudden accident, how it flipped our lives upside down. Ashley was finishing high school. I was barely out of college. And we were alone. Our mom had moved on. We had no one else. Just us. I shared the grind, working multiple jobs, sacrificing everything, even love, to make sure Ashley had a shot at the life she deserved. Then I added, almost as a side note, and during all that, I co-founded a startup. Glanced toward the door. Shout out to my co-founder, who just got here, late as usual. The pause that followed, heavy. People were processing. feeling the weight behind the words. I wasn't boasting. I was giving context, explaining why standing there, on her big day, meant so much. I ended by saying how proud I was of her, and how grateful I was that she found someone who truly saw her, someone who'd love her the way she deserved. As I stepped down and made my way back, I barely reached my seat before her father-in-law came rushing over. This time, smiling wide, like we were best friends. He shook my hand, then my co-founder's. Suddenly, he was full of praise. Your software's been a game changer. I've actually been trying to acquire your company. I smiled politely. Glad to hear it. Maybe we can chat business after the wedding. Then came the question. Why didn't you tell me you were a co-founder when we first met? Not accusatory, but definitely unsettled. I looked him dead in the eye. Why should I? So you could pretend to be nice? He froze. I didn't. I walked away, leaving him to wrestle with the truth. So where are we now? On the surface, unchanged. But beneath it, everything's different. We never sold the company to him. Not out of spite. It just didn't feel right. His interest wasn't about partnership. It was about control. We kept our course. The company grew, on our terms. Ironically, his company still uses our platform, still pays, still sends emails. And we respond. Professionally, politely, but nothing more. It's just business. And as for what really matters, my sister, she's thriving. That's everything. He's always been respectful toward me, even after everything that went down with his father. And honestly, that speaks volumes about his character. That's what gives me peace. Whatever awkwardness there was with his family, Ashley is happy. And after everything we've survived together, that's all I've ever wanted for her. Now, I want to leave you with a few lessons, things this whole journey has etched into me. First, don't ever assume someone's value based on what they look like, or what little they choose to reveal. You have no idea what someone's carrying, or what they've built with their bare hands. I've walked into rooms where eyes slid right past me, until they saw a title, a logo, a name. Then suddenly, I mattered. But that kind of recognition, it's hollow. If you can't see someone's worth when they're quiet and humble, your applause means nothing when they're finally winning. Second, respect should be your default, not a reward. Don't reserve it for people with power or influence. Don't make kindness transactional, because you lose a whole lot more by being dismissive than you ever will by showing grace. And finally, pay attention to the quiet ones. Sometimes the person saying the least is the one holding the most together. They're the ones lifting weight you'll never see. So the next time you feel tempted to overlook someone, pause. Check yourself. And maybe choose to respect them anyway. To close this out, let me just say this. Real respect isn't bought, and it sure as hell isn't demanded. It's earned in the little moments. In how you treat people when there's nothing in it for you. When nobody's watching. Status, money, titles, they shift. They fade. But your character? That stays. The way you speak to people. The way you carry yourself. That's your legacy. Everyone has a story you haven't heard. So stay humble. And if this story hit home, if it reminded you of something you've lived through, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.